Good to see everyone. We're going to begin. We are in the book of Kings 2, and we're in the middle of chapter 14. We're going to start on verse 13. This is a very sad part of the history where the Jewish people fought each other. And what it all boiled down to, it came about because people were insulted. The story of the king of Judah, Amaziah, fighting a war and fighting against Edom. And he had hired, Amaziah had hired extra mercenaries to help him fight this war because the Edomites had a lot of, people, and he was very nervous to fight them. And he decided that I better hire more mercenaries, even though he had like 300,000 of his own. But he decided to hire other soldiers. And who did he want to hire? He hired these Ephraimite soldiers. Now, you have to understand.
I don't remember what verse, but it's that one.
You have to understand that this story that we're reading about it, I'm going back a little, backtracking a little. This is where it says he struck Edom at the Valley of Salt. But most of this story doesn't really say here. If you look at those two verses, all you see is he struck Edom at the Valley. Again, we're in chapter 14. I'm just going back a drop just to get you the flow. So chapter 14, in verse 7, he struck Edom at the Valley of Salt. 10,000 men captured the rock in battle, called it Yokseel, which is its name till today. And then thereupon Amaziah sent messengers to Jehoash, son of Jehoahaz, son of Yehu, king of Israel, saying, let us confront each other in battle. Now, these two verses I'm just bringing here because I just want to remind you of the story here. The story that we're talking about here is that again, it's hidden from the actual wording here. It's in between the lines. It's really elaborated on in the book of Chronicles, and that's something that you find here. That there's a lot of stuff that's written in Chronicles that's just like skimmed over here in the book of Kings. So you really need to know that in order to understand what is going on here. And what we went through pretty much the story, I believe, last week. But just to go over it a little, so the story was that Amaziah is going to fight Edom, as we see here in verse 7, and Amaziah was successful, right? He captured this Yokseel, which sounds like he did well. But what did the story boil down to? The story boiled down to the fact that he had many soldiers because he was so nervous, and he even hired more. And a prophet came to him and told him that you are going to lose the war if you join forces with Ephraim, with the other 10, one of the tribes of the 10 tribes. If you join with them, in other words, you allow them to help you fight, this is not a smart idea because you are going to lose the war. So Amaziah, even though logically he needed those extra 100,000 mercenaries, instead he listened to the prophet, which sounds like, he made a right choice there. Now, the only problem was he already paid those soldiers. He already paid them. He paid 100. This is talking about 100,000 soldiers, and they're not, fighting for $10 an hour. They're probably getting a good, They probably gave them a good fee. And in fact, in Hasidic writings, it talks about fighting a war where You're mevazvez the oitzrus. In order to win, a king sometimes he he opens up his treasuries and just says, "We got to win. I don't care what it costs," and he does anything to win the war. Now, so anyway, I'm just mentioning that because it's reminds me of it here with the he's hiring 100,000 soldiers and he paid them already, and it was obviously a substantial amount of money. And he told the prophet, he said, "I already paid these mercenaries." The prophet said, "Hashem can find other ways to provide," and and he listened. He said Hashem can give. Uh, um, he listened to the prophet and he took the loss. He didn't, he wasn't going to get the money back, so he took the loss. Now, what was so sad about this story? So he wins the war against Edom, and we see that the prophet we we see that the prophet did not want Yehuda, the tribes of Judah and Benjamin, to join forces with Ephraim. They want them to like connect with Ephraim. And the reason being because Ephraim was obviously rampant with idol worship. And Hashem didn't want them connecting with so many people of sin. Not that Judah was perfect, but it was a lot better than the 10 tribes, a lot better than Ephraim. So therefore, and I mean, not that we know clearly the reason, but that's what it seems to be. The understanding was Hashem didn't want them to join. Seemingly, it has something to do with the fact that the 10 tribes were considered rebellious and sinful and so on. Now, the Amatzia listened. So everything sounds good in a certain sense that, Amatzia listened. But then what happened is very surprising to me that Ephraim is insulted. You're not allowing us to join your war? They got paid. And he told them, you don't have to come to work. You're fine. And they were insulted. And then they came and it says they killed 3,000 people from the towns of Judah. They looted the towns and they killed 3,000 people. And that is shocking to me, at least, that why, you got paid, just be happy and go back to bed, take a vacation. What are they doing? They're so insulted that they're going to fight a war and kill people. Now, what happened after that? So that's the first very sad thing. And then what happened after that is that Amatzia now goes to the king of Israel, who's in charge of the Ephraimites, and he says, let's start a war. Let us confront each other in battle. That was verse 8. And so Yehoash, who's the king of Israel, doesn't want to have a war. He tries to discourage him, but he doesn't use the right language. I think maybe if he would have apologized for these, and maybe agreed to bring those guilty to justice, maybe he would have been able to not have a war. But what does he do instead? He insults Amatzia to the extent that he says, "You're like a little thorn bush. You're never going to win. You're going to lose. You're a fool. You're an idiot." He makes him feel like a real loser. And he then tells him, and you're arrogant because you think you won the war against Edom. You think you're going to win against us. You're nothing. And he gives him that parable where he compares him to a thorn bush. He compares himself to a cedar. And so that's that's the message that Yehoash gives to Amatzia, which in a certain sense, maybe he felt if he gives him this very strong, shows him this strength that he has, he's going to knock him to not want to fight. But seemingly that wasn't the right. Again, I'm not sharing this with you based on commentaries, just from the simple reading here. it seems that that his mistake, Yehoash, on the one hand, it seems like he doesn't want to fight this war, which I think should be fighting a war against the other Jewish people. These are the 10 tribes in the two tribes fighting war against each other. I mean, who would want to have such a war? It sounds absolutely um, uh, horrific to have such a even think of having a war against family. But then the way he did it in a way of insulting um, seems like that wasn't because ultimately it did create a war, and ultimately Amatzia lost out. Amatzia lost, and Yehoash won. And that's the continuation of the verses. Verse 11: Amatzia didn't listen, and Yehoash won. They confronted each other, and they Yehoash captured Amatzia, and so this was obviously not a very, and what ended up happening was Amatzia then ended up trampling, going into the Beis Hamikdash and taking the from the treasuries of the temple and articles from the Beis Hamikdash and from the king's palace, and took what they call the hostage children, and he returned to the Shomron. So that's basically where we are up to. We were uh, around verse 13. So I'm just gonna read.
Rabbi,
Yeah. Yes.
how come they talk about Amatzi with all his descriptions? He's the king of Yehuda, the son of Yehoash, the son of Achaziah, king of the.
Which verse are you in?
It looks like it. I have
13.
11.
Okay,
Yeah.
13. Yeah. So we're about to learn that. We're about to learn that pasuk. So let's start.
I have 11, 12, and 13 together, so it might be 12.
Okay. Fine. Okay. Yeah, no problem. So in verse 13, Yehoash, king of Israel, captured Amatzia, king of Judah, the son of Yehoash, the son of Achaziah, in Beit Shemesh. He then came to Jerusalem and he made a breach in the wall of Jerusalem from the Ephraim gate to the corner gate, a distance of 400 cubits. 400 cubits is between 600 and 800 feet. That's quite a big breach in the wall of Jerusalem. And the commentaries explain that it was customary in those days that in order to show that you're the conqueror and you've you want to demonstrate that they are under your dominion, so you make a breach in their wall. And so that was the idea here, that he didn't destroy the wall, but he breached it 400 cubits in order to make that demonstrate that that they are that he's conquered, and the city has been defeated, and then he took all that the gold and silver. Also a little surprising to go and take it from the Beis Hamikdash. Now, the reason it mentions, as David just asked about why it mentions that who his grandfather was. I mean, it's not so common to mention the grandfathers. Often it just mentions the father's name, and here it mentions in verse 13 that he's the son of Yehoash. And as we know, Yehoash was the child that was the miracle child. He lived in the Beis Hamikdash. That's the father, Amatzia, and Amatzia's father was Achaziah, and Achaziah's father was Yehoram, and then his father was Yehoshaphat, right? So that's the whole lineage here that from the kings of Yehuda. So there's one second, did I say it right? Amatzia, yeah, Amatzia is from, yeah, Amatzia, Yehoash, Achaziah, ben Yehoram, ben Yehoshaphat. Yes, I'm right. So so the reason why it says, so why does it say the grandfather? So one of the commentaries explains that if you go back in the history of that there was an assassination before that Amatzia was hoping to correct now. In other words, we understood this war to be a war because Amatzia wants to avenge the blood of the 3,000 people that the Ephraimites had killed, right? That's the understanding. So one of the commentaries says, surprising that this verse brings the grandfather. Excuse me. So he says that, you know why it mentions that? Because it's really, Amatzia had an ulterior motive as well by fighting this war. And that was that Yehu killed Achaziah. Yehu, from the 10 tribes, he had a little he had a family of kings, Yehu, and this Yehoash is one of his descendants, and Yehu had killed this Amatzia's grandfather. So it mentions his grandfather's name, giving that implication like Amatzia thought that he's going to end up avenging the blood of his grandfather. Now, the fact is, his grandfather was killed because Hashem said anyone from the house of Achav is going to get killed, and Achaziah was from the house of Achav, and he was, at the time among the 10 tribes, and they were.
But he had a cheshbon.
So Yehu had a reason why Achaziah deserved to be killed. But here, the pasuk is mentioning it, giving that hint, at least according to this commentary, giving that hint that there was another little knetch, another little element of revenge and anger in his mind that he was planning on finally getting him back. And it didn't work because it ended up the opposite way. What I find surprising is Yehoash did not kill Amatzia. He captured him. And then right after we find that Amatzia is still alive and he's back king. So it's not clear. Again, I mentioned it last week that it leaves it vague. How did he end up was he just freed? Did he escape? Like it leaves it, somehow he's back king and Amatzia is back king in Yerushalayim. And then, of course, we learned that he did run away to Lachish. But how did he get out of this mess? I would have thought, Yehoash would have ended up killing him, but he didn't. So they captured so verse 13 mentioned that he captured this Amatzia, and that he breached the base of the wall of Yerushalayim, and he basically went back. He took all the gold. 14 is he took all the gold and silver, all the articles that were found in the temple of Hashem and in the treasuries of the king's palace, along with the house of children, and he returned to Shomron. He went back home to the Shomron, to Samaria. I see, Susan, you had a question. Let me pull it up here if I can. Susan, I don't know why I don't see the question. You want to ask it? Oh, here on the side here. Why idol worship is such an issue, since the worship does not produce results unless by trickery? Yeah, Susan's asking a very strong question. I see in the chat that what was their thought of the idol worship? What were they thinking? Now, the surprising thing really is that in the previous story, after Amatzia had conquered Edom, what happened right then? So it says that Amatzia took the Edomite idols to Judah and was worshiping them. Again, it doesn't say it here. It says it in the book of Chronicles. But now that is quite shocking, because who won that war? Amatzia won the war against Edom. He got land back and so on. And so what does he do? He goes and takes, so this, I'm just strengthening your question, Susan. What does he do? He goes and takes the idols that were unsuccessful for Edom, and he goes and he wants to worship them. How foolish can you be? It's one thing to worship idols that you don't know if they're successful. That might be successful. Here he goes and takes the losers, and he goes and started, and Hashem helped him. It was a miracle. Hashem helped him. He needed much more soldiers, and he won the war even without those extra mercenaries. And yet, and then he goes and he's importing the incapable idols, and then he wants to, and he knows it's against Hashem's wishes, and he still goes and he's worshiping them. And he was warned, and there was it mentions that there was a prophet that warned him. Yes, Isaac.
You make it sound like worshiping idols is walking into a place like a shul and expecting, something immediately. The worship of idols back then was znus beyond belief, and eating and drinking and other partying. It was a place to let yourself go. And a lot of Yidden fell for it, as it were. In the morning, you didn't really remember even why you went the night before. But I think that's what it really was more of. And also, I forget where it says, somebody said that if you were alive today, you'd be like climbing to get into for Avodah Zarah. There was such a yetzer, there was such a drive for Avodah Zarah that people was really sucked into it. And the Rabbanan davened, or whatever they did, that, the lion and the fire and the Beis Hamikdash, whatever ultimately happened, but that yetzer, that drive to go to Avodah Zarah, was wiped out, which is why none of us can really conceive of how you can, bow to a lucky charm.
Right. So the second thing that you mentioned, Isaac, is what the Gemara mentions, that we can't relate to it because the rabbis fasted and prayed to Hashem to remove the desire for idol worship. So that's something written down. The first thing that you said, Isaac, is a very interesting way of thinking about it, because some of the idol worship that they, that was there were different activities that were done at these idol worships. So
one of them was known for defecating on something or somebody, and that was the worship. Fine, I am sure they did not have as big a drive as the idol worship that required you to take one of the women that were there and do whatever. I'm sure that was a lot more popular.
So it's an interesting understanding that you're sharing, Isaac. Again, I don't know if we can say that those were the ones that were more popular or less, because supposedly some of all of these were very, very popular.
I don't know either. I'm not trying to
but
promote
it's an interesting
one over the other.
It's definitely an interesting take on it, that there was a lot of partying, and they were going there for the food and for the fun and for and rather than religious service. So that's an interesting take. Again, I don't know if you see that from the stories of throughout Tanakh, but you do see a little of it maybe from the story of the Egel, where they were partying. But you don't, and Tanakh, I don't know if you see it that often when it mentions about the idol worship, about the partying element of it. So it's definitely an interesting take on it, and could be, it could be. But the first answer, the answer that I would have mentioned is what you said second, what about what the Gemara says. Yes, David.
I heard Rabbi Gordon Olashom. I don't know if he's quoting the sages, the later sages. And he said that the lust and the desire for idol worship, it wasn't just wiped out. It had to be replaced with a desire and a lust for something else, and it was replaced with money.
Yeah, right.
And you see over the last 100 years, people go crazy and do all kinds of horrible things for money.
Yep. Yes. True. Okay, so anyway, I think that answers the. It does give a little understanding of what was going on over here. Now, where are we up to? So we are up to verse 15. The rest of these of Yehoash that he did in his might, and how he went to war against Amaziah, king of Yehuda, behold, they are recorded in the book of Chronicles, the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel. And again, that's a book that we don't have, the Chronicles of the Malchei Yisrael. Now, Yehoash, so anyway, that's the story of Yehoash. Yehoash, again, Yehoash is the king. This Yehoash is the king of Israel, the king, the 10 tribes. And he was the one who fought the war against Amaziah, who's the king of Judah. Now, verse 16, Yehoash lay with his forefathers, was buried in the Shomron with the kings of Israel. His son Yeravam reigned in his place. So here we have Yeravam number 2, and that's um, the other Yeravam was his, was the first king of the 10 tribes. And this Yeravam is whatever the 16th king, I think we counted last time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, maybe the 14th. Yeah, it seems like he's the 14th king of the 10 tribes. And so Yeravam number 2. Now, verse 17, Amaziah, son of Yehoash, king of Yehuda, lived for 15 years after the death of Yehoash, the son of Yehoachaz, king of Israel. So verse 17, here's Amaziah back he was captured that we saw before, but now he's back, he's king. He lived for 15 years after Yehoash died, king of Israel. So he's called the king of Yehuda. He lives 15. The rest of these of Amaziah, behold, they are recorded in the book of Chronicles of the kings of Yehuda. They organized a conspiracy against him in Jerusalem. So he fled to Lachish. So he was somehow he was let free and escaped. And he's in Yehuda, in Yerushalayim. And when they arranged a conspiracy to kill him, so he fled to Lachish, but they sent after him to Lachish and killed him there. And what would they? So why did they? Why did they want to kill him? So the simple thought would be that he made this whole war for nothing. He lost and fought a war against Yehoash and he lost. Um, you would think that would be the reason, but it says, brought down, the commentaries say that the reason why they were upset was because he was a big idol worshiper, which means in the kingdom of Judah, there was still a lot of negativity to the idol worship, even though the king seemed to fall into this trap, and obviously many others as well. But there was a group, it seems like a very strong group of people that were against it. And not like in the 10 tribes where the vast majority probably did worship idols. But here we have the vast majority probably didn't worship idols, and they were against Amaziah's involvement with his idol worship. Now, there is another interpretation here that they bring down, that it's also that they felt not just that they didn't want to have a king who was worshiping, that they just wanted to kill him because of his idolatry, adopting idolatry, and who knows what type of decrees he might make. But more importantly, they felt that this is going to be the future of the country is at stake if they don't get rid of this king. In other words, they felt that it's going to create punishment from Hashem for the whole nation, and they therefore decided to overthrow him. Okay. So we are in verse 18. Okay, no, we said verse 18, 19. Okay, so we're up to verse 20. Now, so what is he doing in Lachish? So Lachish seems to be a place where he built himself a fortress, and thought he would be safe there, but obviously wasn't, and they ultimately got him. So Amaziah is assassinated. They carried him with horses, and he was buried in Jerusalem with his forefathers in the city of David, which means they did give him a little covet. And all the people of Yehuda then took Azariah, who was 16 years old, and crowned him in place of his father Amaziah. Now, I do want to just mention there is a discussion among the commentaries, mainly the Rashi and Radak, if when Amaziah when Yehoash died, Amaziah is now, Yehoash captured him, and shortly thereafter he died. Now, somehow Amaziah is back in Yerushalayim. Did he go immediately to Lachish? And if he did, does that mean that he put his son up for king in the meantime while he escaped to Lachish? Or did he wait some time and he only went to Lachish later on? It's a little vague in the verses. You could easily learn that he waited a while. He lived 15 years maybe in Jerusalem, and then at the end they had a conspiracy against him. Then he fled to Lachish. I think that's what the Sukkim sound like, but Rashi doesn't learn that way. Rashi wants to learn that he immediately went to Lachish. He immediately went to Lachish once he got back. He saw that they were gonna, maybe he got nervous, he was paranoid, and his son really reigned for those 15 years. So Amaziah's 15 years, these last 15 years were really ruled by his son, who, Azariah. And so he really ruled at the age of 16. So they took Azariah, who was 16 years old, and crowned him in place of his father Amaziah. And then it says he built up Eilat after having restored it to Judah after the king lay with his forefathers. So the understanding according to Rashi is that he might have been crowned already, but he then built up. He didn't build up Eilat until after his father had passed away, which was 15 years later. And the reason it was after restoring it to Yehuda, which the understanding is that he somehow conquered it. According to the other commentary, like Radak and Matsudas David also seems to say like this, that the understanding is that really Eilat was a city that Amaziah had conquered from Edom. So Amaziah, when he fought that war against Edom, he got back the city of Eilat, but it wasn't built up. And here Azariah, the son, builds it up. So that's the understanding here of at least the way the commentaries are, the two ways of understanding of learning here, with when Azariah really took over. Did he already take over in the beginning of these 15 years, or did he wait till his father passed away, and that's when he took over? But ultimately, they built up this city of Eilat, and after having restored it to Yehuda, after the king lay with his fathers after Amaziah passed away. Okay, so now we're going to talk about Yeravam, the king of Israel. Again, this is the second Yeravam, the king of Israel, because there already was one Yeravam before. It was the first king of the kings of Israel. In the 15th year of the reign of Amaziah, the son of Yehoash, king of Yehuda, Yeravam, the son of Yehoash, king of Israel, became king. So again, both fathers of the kings were Yehoash. We got the king of Judah's father's name is Yehoash. The king of Israel's father's name is Yehoash. Now, according to Rashi, what's interesting is that, or according to one way of learning this, so it was the 15th year of Amaziah, the son of Yehoash. So he was, according to Rashi, he had ruled 15 years while his father was alive. So now his father passed away. He's sort of taking over. He's becoming official king now. So so what that means is that he started, or his official title as king started together the same time as Yerovam. It's almost like they started their kingdom at the same time, because the first 15 years of Amaziah, he was he was sort of like his father was official king. He was there. So the actual reign began at the same time of both kings, the king Yerovam, Yerovam II, and the king Amaziah, the son of Amaziah. One second. The 15th year of the reign of Amaziah, the son of Yehoash, 15th year, the son of the reign of Amaziah. Excuse me. Let me just reword that, what I said. The 15th year of the reign of Amaziah. Amaziah reigned for 29 years. So in his 15th year is when he gave over the kingdom to his son, who the pasuk here calls him Azariah. He actually has another name, Uzziah, but the here in Malachim it calls him Azariah. The book of Chronicles it calls him Uzziah. Now so in that year, the 15th year of Amaziah. So according to Rashi, Azariah took over, or Uzziah took over, and at the same time, Yerovam, the second Yerovam, started his reign in the Shomron. So again, I switched what I said before was not exact. The correct understanding is that this is the 15th year of the reign of Amaziah, where Amaziah now runs to Lachish, and his son Azariah takes over, who's also called Uzziah. It takes over, and at the same time, Yerovam becomes king of the 10 tribes. Yerovam number two, becomes king of the 10 tribes. So it seems like they're both becoming king at the same time. Uzziah or Azariah is becoming king somewhat, say quasi becoming king, because his father is still alive. But and Yerovam too is becoming king because his father passed away, Yehoash. Okay, now verse 24. And it says how long he reigned. This is very interesting. Yerovam too reigned for 41 years. He was blessed with a nice long, he was quite a long-serving king. 41 years, Yerovam ben Yehoash. He was the longest of the 10 tribe kings. 41 years. Okay, so he did what was evil in the eyes of Hashem. He did not turn away from all the sins of Yerovam, the son of Nebat, that he caused Israel to sin. He restored the boundary of Israel from Lavo Chamos until Yom Ho'arava, like the word of Hashem, God of Israel, which he had spoken by the hand of his servant, Yoina ben Amitai Hanavi, who was from a place called Gas HaChefer. So here we have Yonah. We did see him maybe once or twice before here. And there was a prophet here and there where we did see that Yonah sort of like popped in. But here, Yerovam number 2, he restored the boundaries of Israel. And what's interesting is that he restores also the boundaries of Judah. In other words, it's not only his own area that he's in charge of, but he also restores the Judah section, the Judah area as well, and he makes sure that that we get back all of our land, our property. Now, different opinions in the Gemara about how did he conquer everything that Joshua conquered, and in other words, he got it all back, or did he even do more than what Joshua and David got? One opinion says he even did extra. It's surprising. One of the commentaries says, "Well, why does it say restored? If he got extra, the word restored is not really fitting. It should say he conquered new lands." But there is such an opinion that it's brought down two opinions in the Mishnah. If he went extra, did more than but he basically restored all the lands and possibly even got extra. Now, verse 23 is, see, the Yam Arava, the Sea of Arava, that's the Dead Sea. Yam Arava, that's considered the Dead Sea. The problem is that the Dead Sea is in the property of it's in the domain of Judah. But you see here that it seems that he helped the entire Jewish people by making sure that restoring all the land that belongs to us was ours. And although we saw in the previous story where there seemed to be a nice war between the 10 tribes and the 2 tribes, here we see that he helped them out. No, Yerovim helped them restore all the lands. And these were all according to the way Hashem had spoken through Yoina. Now, Yoina was the one who anointed Yehu, who killed out the whole, Yehu killed out all of the family of Achav, and Yehu was merited to have 4 generations. He told him that you're going to have 4 generations. And so that's where we did see Yonah before. Now, verse 26, for Hashem had seen that Israel's suffering was very severe, with neither hidden property nor public property, and there was no helper for Israel. So Hashem saw that, and Ein Oizer li Yisrael, Efes Otzor v'Efes Ozov. This is means that there's no one to help, and so the pasuk continues and says, but Hashem did not erase the name of Israel from under the heavens, so he saved them through the hand of Yeravam, the son of Yehoash. The rest of the deeds of Yeravam and all he did, and his might that he performed in battle, and how he restored Damascus, Damasek, and Hamas to Yehuda with the army of Israel. Behold, they record in the book of Chronicles of the kings of Israel. And Yeravam lay with his forefathers, the kings of Israel, and his son Zechariah reigned in his place. Now, this is not the Zechariah that we know of. There's 2 famous Zechariah prophets, but this is a king, Zechariah ben Yeravam. Now, Hashem blessed Yehu with 4 generations because he killed out the family of Achav, and he wiped out one of the main avodah zaras. He killed them all out, and did a huge, some amazing things for Hashem. And he was blessed with 4 generations of descendants. Who were the 4 generations of Yehu? So Yehu had Yehoachaz, Yehoash, and now we're just learning about Yeravam, and the 4th generation is Zechariah. So Yehoachaz, Yehoash, Yeravam 2, and Zechariah is going to be the 4 extra. He got 4 generations of kings. Now, chapter 15. So we talk about Azariah, the king of Yehuda. So we jump back. So we were talking now about the kingdom of Israel, basically, as we've seen, constantly going back and forth here. So now we're going back to the kingdom of Judah. And we're in chapter 15, in the 27th year of Yeravam, the king of Israel. Azariah, the son of Amaziah, king of Yehuda, became king. So we just saw that before. And we also mentioned that Azariah had another name, Uzziah. And Azariah, Uzziah. Yeah. So he's the son of Amaziah. He's king of Judah. He was 16 years old when he became king, and he reigned for 52 years in Jerusalem.
Rabbi,
So, yes.
when all this going back and forth is happening, what's happening with the non-Jewish nations around them?
I mean, the purpose of the book of Kings is not a history book. It's really to teach us lessons. So it's not going to share with us all the insignificant happenings and foolish things that the Goyim are involved in, unless there's some message that we're supposed to get out of it. So
I thought maybe the message was that finally it's quiet between the Jews and their neighbors, so they have to fight with each other for decades after decades after decades.
well, that could be. Again, we did just conquer Edom, and we've quieted them down for a little while now. But then again, I mean, there probably are a lot of stories of that what's going on with the Goyim. There probably were newspapers, and there must be politics. But again, it's not. It doesn't seem like it would be of interest to us to the Book of Prophets for us to know and to learn from. Unless you know of another explanation. So we're here learning about.
When David is the king, you see plenty of things going on with the non-Jewish nations around, like Amalek and Goliath and the other non-Jewish nations, interactions between them,
and the Jewish people. There were interactions between the Jews and them, right? So your question is, were the nation? Do we know of any stories of the Goyim fighting with the Yidden? Now, why doesn't it mention any of those stories? You're saying anymore?
Right, and
that's what you're asking, not about their own internal affairs.
Oh, right, yeah, right. I thought, yeah.
You're wondering about.
Yeah. Right, exactly. And is there a lesson to be learned from that? That when things were quiet with the Goyim, then the Jews fought with each other for decades.
So I don't know if you see that. Again, we just saw here that Yeravam helped restore all the land, even to the tribes of Judah. So it wasn't exactly, if you have no one to fight with your family. You don't really see that here. I mean, Yeravam fought with, Yeravam didn't fight. Yeravam brought peace. Yeravam was very peaceful with the other tribes. So you don't really see that. There was a fight between the tribes, like you're implying, and that was that story with Amaziah. But there was a reason for it. Maybe not a legitimate reason, but there was logic. There was some however you want to say, warped logic, but there was some logic behind that war. But now they're right. We don't find any actual fighting. We've seen it before that there was fighting, and it would mention it. It did mention it, and here we don't see any of that. So yeah, it does seem like there's peace between the and between the two kingdoms. Okay, so again, so where are we? We're in the middle of verse 2. He was 16 years old when he became king, which we already saw. And he reigned for 52 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Yecholyahu of Jerusalem. There is a commentary, interestingly enough, that wants to say, a little different than Rashi had learned, that wants to say that the reason it mentions the mother is because when Amaziah fled to Lachish, so his mother, the Amaziah's wife, was the mother of Azariah. She reigned in his stead in Jerusalem while the husband had fled to Lachish. Ultimately, he was assassinated there. So there is such an interpretation. Again, we've seen this before, where the mother's name is mentioned, and it's interesting that the both times that we saw this, and again, I don't know of any commentary that talks about it, but both times I think it said that the mother was from Jerusalem. His mother's name was Yecholia, and I think the other time we saw this uh, by one of the previous kings, B'Shem Imai, must have been in chapter 13, where I'm guessing. Same Imai. Is it over there? Maybe 12. There was another king that we mentioned, his mother. B'Shem Imai. Oh no, it does say me Beersheba. 12 in chapter 12, where it talks about Yehoash. So it says the 7th year of Yehu, ben Sheva Shanim Yehoash b'Malchai. He was 7 years old when he became king, and the B'Shna Sheva Yehu, in the 7th year of Yehu, Yehoash became king. Ba'arboim Shanim Malach, he ruled for 40 years, and his mother's name was Tzivia from Beersheba. His mother's name was Tzivia. Again, so we do see that once in a while it does seem to mention the mother's name. Why it mentions the mother's name, not sure. Um, one of the commentaries does mention that mentions the mother's name to show that she was righteous, even though her husband Achaziah was not. So idol worshiper and so on, but she was righteous. Anyway, but here it mentions that his mother was from Yerushalayim. I thought we had a place where it said that the mother was from Yerushalayim. I'll have to look it up and see. Shem Imaim Yerushalayim. I'll have to look and see if I can find another place. Okay, so anyway, so he ruled for 52 years. His mother's name is Yecholyahu from Yerushalayim. And verse 3, he did what was proper in the eyes of Hashem, entirely as his father, Kechol asher asa Amatzio aviv, like all that his Amatzio had done. Except, however, the high places did not cease, meaning he didn't stop the bumais, that they would bring all sacrifices on these altars, which seems to have been a big problem, that people, wanted to bring sacrifices to Hashem, This was not idol worship, it was sacrifice to Hashem, but they didn't feel like going to the Beis Hamikdash. They liked being able to bring these sacrifices on bamais. And it's almost like going to a shtibel instead of going to the big shul that's a mile away, to 2 miles away. People like to go to the local bamais or something. Now, of course, there's nothing wrong with going to a shtibel, but going to a bama is against the Torah. But nevertheless, it seems like it was impossible to get people to to stop people from doing this. So it says he didn't. And they continued, and people continued. So, however, the high places did not cease, and people continued to sacrifice and burn incense at the high places. So they would bring sacrifices there and bring these karbanos. And Hashem inflicted disease upon the king. He was a leper until the day of his death, and he dwelt in the place hachifshis. He was in a place of chifshis. Now they translate. They made a special house in the Beis Hakvaros, in the cemetery. And hachifshis is the term used for cemetery because it says Bamesim chafshi. When a person passes away, they're free from doing mitzvahs. Chifshis means a place of freedom. It means freedom from mitzvahs, because after a person dies, they can no longer do good deeds. So that is the term used, and they made him a house there, and basically he had leprosy, and Hashem inflicted disease upon him. He was a leper, and Yosam. That's it. Let me read. I'm going to start again. Verse 5. Hashem inflicted disease upon the king, and he was a leper until the day of his death, and he dwelt in a place of chifshitz. They translate as asylum. Yosam, the king's son, was appointed over the palace, judging the people of the land. So Yosam seems to have taken over. Yosam ben Hamelech. So Yosam is the one who's taking over. The rest of the deeds of Azariah, and again, as I mentioned, he's sometimes called Uzziah in the book of Chronicles. So the rest of the deeds of Azariah and all that he did, behold, they are recorded in the book of Chronicles of the king of Judah. Azariah lay with his forefathers, and they buried him with his forefathers in the city of David. His son Yosam reigned in his place. And here we stop talking about the king of Judah, Uzziah, or Azariah, and we jump now to the story of Zechariah, the king of Israel, Zechariah ben Yeravam. This is Zechariah, the son of Yeravam, number 2. And we're going to stop here, but that's where the prophet continues talking about Zechariah. Okay, Sei gesund, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Rabbi.